Welcome, Title Tribe. Welcome back. It is your boy, Showtime George. I am here today doing another off-season breakdown. As you can tell by the background and the colors, we are doing the reigning, defending world champion Kansas City Chiefs. I am honored to have Charles Goldman with us here today. Charles, thank you very much for coming on to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about you, your background, and all that good stuff.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. First of all, I'm Charles Goldman, managing editor for USA Today Sports Media Group's Chiefs Wire, and the managerial director over at KCSN, handling all their editorial work on their newsletters and what have you. But yeah, I've been doing this for a while now. I kind of got started as the Chiefs Wire managing editor right around the time that Patrick Mahomes took over the team. So not a bad time to start covering the Chiefs professionally, right?
No, that's a like, if you could pick a time to do it, that's better than any.
That's how I feel too. It certainly was a blessing to start right around that time, and really exciting to cover this team through its recent championships, and its latest one was its greatest one in my opinion, and so it's been really a great and exciting thing to cover such a dynamic team, such a great offensive team. I mean, obviously Andy Reid, such a tremendous head coach, legacy of success in the league, and bringing that success to Kansas City.
Yeah, and that's a little foreshadowing. We're going to talk a little bit about Andy Reid later on. Real quick, I'm going to go through. Got to pay some of the bills here. If you're watching, you can listen to us. Toilets to Titles. Amazingly, nobody had that handle on any social, so you could find Toilets to Titles on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Podbean, Facebook, Twitch, and I believe we just went live on Threads. I guess that's the newest thing. So you could find us all there. Hit the like and subscribe button for all Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and YouTube. It really, really helps our algorithm. And this episode is actually brought to you by our newest sponsor, Rival Fantasy. If you're not familiar with Rival Fantasy, they are the newest evolution of sports betting. You can click the link right here on your screen and start your account to have your first deposit of up to $200 matched, plus an additional $25 will be added to your account from Rival. So if you put in $100, they're actually going to give you $225 by clicking the link on the screen. Again, that is Rival Fantasy. They are the newest evolution of sports betting. So now that the bills are paid, let's dive into the Kansas City Chiefs. As I mentioned earlier, they're the reigning, defending world champions. Typically, I start out asking what went right with the team, the previous season. If you're the defending world champions, I'm just going to say a lot went right. There was a lot of talk last year, though, that the Chiefs, were, because they traded away Tyreek Hill, they were no longer the best team in their division. It was supposed to be one of the most highly contested divisions in the NFL, and I don't feel like it ended up being that way. What was your perspective on the division last year and how it played out for your Chiefs?
Yeah, I think the AFC West, always a really competitive division, but the Chiefs have such a record of success. They know these teams so well that really, I mean, and Andy Reid's been the big difference since he's arrived in Kansas City with in terms of the AFC West. And I think, you really saw that last year. That everyone was talking about the Broncos, the rival of Russell Wilson, and that he would kind of change the tides for them. And as it turned out, having the rookie head coach there really didn't help them very much. And then, coaching issues with Brandon Staley and the Chargers. I mean, that team is as talented as they come on paper, yet they just can't seem to get over the hump. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with coaching, decision making, both in game and just during the course of the season. And I think, the Chiefs played it, absolutely the best way they possibly could, with the Tyreek Hill trade, how they invested their assets after that. Really what the pieces that they surrounded Patrick Mahomes by to ensure that, hey, he could still have this level of success. And really just, showing faith in both sides of the ball and their ability to get it done. I think, really towards the end of the season, you saw, in the Super Bowl, that the Chiefs defense made kind of an outsized impact in their ability to go out there and win that game. Nick Bolton's defensive touchdowns, the young secondary kind of coming together late in the season. I think all those things contributed, and especially when you consider Patrick Mahomes playing through that game, a couple of games there with the ankle injury. You understand how team composition and how having these different pieces all come and work together are so important over the course of the 17-game season and 3-game postseason.
So I forgot to ask before we jumped in, and that's on me. Before we dived in, I was supposed to ask you your favorite player in Kansas City history,
right.
And you can't say Kelce, you can't say Tony Gonzalez, or you can't say Patrick Mahomes, because I feel like those three are just way too easy.
Man, it's super hard. Can I say three? Can I name three? Since you gave me three that I couldn't say. Since
I said you can't name any of those three. If you have three favorites, go for it.
I will say Derek Johnson, Tamba Hali, and Jamal Charles. So all kind of like the same era of Chiefs football. Yep. But I think those guys kind of like really kind of embodied what it was to be a Chiefs player for such a long time. And when things weren't great, like when they weren't winning, 10 games a season on average, right? Like, but these guys still came to work and prepared and did the best they possibly could to help that team win games. And Tamba Hali in particular, he comes to mind just like such a I remember that one game that he had where I think he like busted his nose open and he just had blood like rushing down his face as he was like rushing the passer. It was just like the most intimidating thing I've ever seen. But he was what can you say about him? He was just one of the great pass rushers in franchise history. His hand fighting work, like he did, all this work with martial arts and whatnot to kind of improve that area of his game, and really just attack the football in a really great way. Derek Johnson, just the prototypical 3-4 inside linebacker, just absolutely thumping guys in the run game. And really probably better in the passing game than people probably remember or give him credit for. But he had some really nice plays in the passing game as well. And then Jamal Charles, just such a dynamic running back. I actually got a really cool actually, let's see if I can grab it. Oh, no, I can't. But I got a really cool auto patch card of his for my collection like a week ago. But no, just you watch him play against anybody, and he was always outrunning guys. Like the way he could run the football, he would glide on the field. Like that's the only way I could describe it. Like he looked faster than every single person out there on the field. So yeah, those would be my three. I don't know how I would order them or rank them, but those are my guys. That kind of tells you the era of Chiefs football that I grew up with and watched and whatnot. But yeah, really a great franchise in terms of history and great players to come through. Just a ton of really cool players. So
yeah, there's no doubt the Chiefs have definitely had some great players come through that organization, and I definitely believe that starts at the top. With the ownership, and then it trickles down from there. Speaking of great players coming through the organization, what would you say were the three biggest additions from free agency for the Kansas City Chiefs this year?
This past year or this for this upcoming year?
Well, this upcoming year.
For this upcoming year, yeah.
Yeah. So the most recent free agency period.
Yeah, I mean, Jawan Taylor, the right tackle from Jacksonville. Obviously, there was some thought that he might be playing left tackle originally, but I think that keeping him at right tackle is the smart move. I mean, I think you look at what a good right tackle has done for this offense in the past in Mitchell Schwartz. I think if you can at least get one of those positions locked down with a good young player, you're in good shape. Or left or right, I mean, obviously, I think there's some preference toward left tackle in the NFL, but I think they both matter probably equally. And having Taylor, I think it fits the style of offense that the Chiefs are looking to run a little bit more than both Andrew Wiley and Orlando Brown Jr. did. I mean, this we're talking about more of an athlete, guy who's a little bit better as a pass protector than he is a run blocker. In terms of run blocking, you're probably going to see some more like zone type of stuff from him, as opposed to some of the power stuff that they're trying to run with behind Orlando Brown Jr. and Andrew Wiley. So I think he offers the Chiefs a little bit more of probably what Andy Reid wants, probably a little bit more of what they want to run, from a schematic standpoint. And who else? I think Omenihu. I mean, those guys were probably the top two free agent signings for Kansas City, just in terms of money spent. I do think I do think that he's going to be someone. He's going to be someone that probably contributes more than fans are giving him credit for. He has the versatility to line up all up and down the defensive line, from nose tackle all the way out to wide nine or what have you. So he's probably someone who I think that Steve Spagnuolo is going to have a really specific plan for him, ideas and ways that he can utilize him and get him into favorable matchups, be it lining him beside Chris Jones or lining him out on the edge in certain looks. And I think he's going to be one of those guys who's kind of like his job's going to be getting after the quarterback, as opposed to doing a lot in the run game. And then I'm kind of torn on my third one. I want to say Drew Tranquill, because it was such a surprise to signing, because Chiefs fans last year, they drafted Leo Chenal. Year before that, Nick Bolton. Year before that, Willie Gay Jr. They've always made these consistent high investments in the linebacker position recently, and then they come in, they bring Tranquill in, and this guy who he's really able to play all three linebacker positions. He had a ton of production as a blitzer last season with the Chargers. He's a player they're very familiar with, being that he played in the division. Yep. I want to say Tranquill, but I'm actually, I'm doubling back here. I'm going to say Richie James, wide receiver out of the New York Giants. That's going to be my third, because I think that the Chiefs fans are kind of underrating him and the value that he brings, and really that Brett Veach said, shortly after he was signed, I think it was actually in one of his pre-draft press conferences, he mentioned that the Chiefs actually tried to trade for Richie James when he was with, I think, the 49ers. So they tried to acquire him at a previous juncture, which always tells me, okay, like they like this player a lot, right? And when they go after a guy multiple times, like they have a plan for him. They have an idea of what he can be in their offense, what he can be in their team. And I think, he brings the special teams elements, facts that he can return kicks, he can return punts, and he's dynamic as both a punt and kick returner. But also he was such a reliable target for Daniel Jones last season. And, Jones isn't exactly the most wildly accurate quarterback the NFL has ever seen, right? So
no, he's not as accurate as Tua Tagovailoa, that's
right.
For sure.
Right. So so you can you can really, I guess you can really see that there's a plan for him there, and that that there's potential for him to really have a big year in this system, and be that same type of target for a markedly better player in Patrick Mahomes. So I think that's exciting. And yeah, I mean, they really added quite a few good pieces in free agency. You can really kind of see the vision as it all kind of came together this offseason. I think there's probably even, some room to add a few guys, heading into camp if they feel the need to do so.
So you touched a little bit about the wide receiver room with Richie James. Let's just dive feet first, head first, cannonball right into that wide receiver room. A lot was made last year with the Chiefs trading Tyreek Hill. To the reason why I brought up Tua Tagovailoa is I'm a Miami Dolphins fan at heart.
Okay,
that is by far my team. But the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill over to Miami, and a lot was made of that wide receiver room. They brought in Juju Smith-Schuster, and it seems like they were able to piecemeal the wide receiver room. This year, Juju Smith-Schuster leaves in free agency, and they brought in Richie James. They didn't address the wide receiver room at all during the draft. They signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I believe he came over from the Packers. You still have Kadarius Toney. You got Sky Moore. What can we expect from this wide receiver room that the Chiefs have assembled? And is there any chance there may be a free agent signing from somebody that was released in Arizona?
I think, I'll touch on that last bit first here. I think right now, Chiefs fans are so fed up and tired of hearing about DeAndre Hopkins. They're just like, it's going to happen. Just let it happen already. But the problem is they don't have the salary cap space to make a deal work right now. Yep. And they have a couple ways they can get that salary cap space, but the likeliest one is an extension with Chris Jones. And that's really the first and biggest item on the agenda for Brett Veach this offseason. And, unless something changes dramatically in the next couple of weeks, I suspect that both sides are in an agreeable place to get the deal done. It's just a matter of when. And, if DeAndre Hopkins is still meandering out there and available as a free agent, I think that they can then turn their attention to, potentially bringing him on board in Kansas City. I think they'll have the script to kind of go out there and do it if they need to. I feel like everything we've heard from Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid right now indicate that would be a luxury, that it's not something that they need to go and do. I think right now they're happy with the players they have. I think they're hoping that some of them will seize the opportunity that's in front of them to really, take advantage and put together a big year. I think namely Sky Moore is someone that they're looking to take over kind of that Juju Smith-Schuster role. He kind of played an understudy to Smith-Schuster last year, but he also was kind of put through the ringer a little bit. They usually in Kansas City, they will give a wide receiver, one role to focus on just to get them up to speed and ensure that, hey, this guy can contribute. But lately, Andy Reid has been throwing as much as possible at these guys, and Sky Moore got all of it. He was basically, learning how to play all three of their receiver roles, the X, the Z, and the Zebra, which is their kind of like hybridized slot receiver role. And I think, for a guy coming from Western Michigan, it was a lot. And the fact that he was also being asked to play, punt returner, and that he wasn't succeeding there, I think it was a lot mentally. And that there were some blocks that he kind of had to get past as the season went on. I think, kind of late in the year when the injuries started to stack up, we saw some of those flashes and some of what he can be this year. And I think he's kind of taking advantage of that opportunity. I mean, he was one of the first players out in Texas working with Patrick Mahomes this offseason. He's really been, barreling down, honing in, working on his craft, and trying to improve as much as he can on his own time. So I think that stuff is all a good sign for Kansas City. I think they'll see all of that kind of come to fruition on the field. And then you look at Kadarius Toney, a player who we know is dynamic, we know is extremely talented. He's just struggled to stay healthy and on the field, at least in the short time he's been in Kansas City. And there's some debate on whether some of those injuries and what was going on behind the scenes in New York. But it's clear that this is an opportunity in place that he wants to be. Like, he wants to be in Kansas City. The situation is good. And so I think so long as he can, keep upright, keep those hamstrings lubed up and ready to go, that he's going to have an opportunity to break out. And then, you've got some of the old trusty guys back from I say old trusty. They were really only here last season, right? But Justin Watson, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, guys who are entering their second year with the team, who are kind of more the veteran types of players in the room. So those are guys who I think, you're maybe week to week, they're not going to be the stars, but they're going to make some big catches when it counts, as we saw with Valdez-Scantling in the AFC title game. I think was when he kind of went off, had a big, 100+ yard game. And I think he's capable of doing that and making some big receptions when it counts. And we'll see that. I mentioned Richie James already. Rasheed Rice is an interesting one because, obviously people saw what happened with Sky Moore last season, and they're thinking, well, can we really rely on another Chiefs wide receiver to go in there and produce on the field and in real life and in fantasy football, right? But I think the opportunity is a little bit different. The type of player and the way they're talking about him is quite different compared to Sky Moore. Specifically, the things that I've noted is that, both Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and even Matt Nagy mentioned his talent and likened him to a running back. So what that usually tells me is guy is going to get, opportunities to catch the ball, maybe on screen passes, or, I think he's going to use be used on some of these gadget type plays that, maybe Mecole Hardman was used on. It's something where you get the ball in his hands and just let him go. So I'm thinking that, he's going to have those opportunities, which Sky Moore didn't have as a rookie. But then also, Patrick Mahomes has said that he has kind of a veteran mindset, knows how to find kind of the soft spots in zone coverage. So I think you're going to see him out on the field and contributing a little bit earlier than maybe than Sky Moore. And he'll be in there for certain looks where they can take advantage of, really where they think his skill set is thriving right now early on. And, one thing to consider about Rasheed Rice coming out is that he, last year he played with, I think he had turf toe for 9 games last season.
Yep.
So he got that repaired. And, he was still, I think he was like the third, I think he had the third most, or maybe he's the first most. I don't know. He was one of the top receivers in the FBS last season in terms of receiving yardage. And that's all on, a bad toe. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how he adjusts from that, how his game changes. Will he be able to create more separation than he did a season ago? I think that he's trending upward. I think if you look at some of the stuff that's been out there this offseason, some of the videos, some of the clips, you can see that he looks a little bit quicker than maybe he did, a season ago in college at SMU.
It's funny
go ahead.
It's funny when you look at the Chiefs wide receiver room, it's a very young room for the most part. I think MVS is your quote unquote veteran wide receiver on the team.
He's like, he's 27, right? Or something like that.
Yeah,
like he's not even that old.
It's a very young room. And there's, you got Justin Ross, which is basically unknown. He missed, most of the season last year. You got John Ross is there. I guess he would probably be the veteran, but I mean, I guess he's on the roster bubble to even make the team.
Right.
You think he'll make the 53-man roster?
I think there's a lot of hype for him, being that he was such a dynamic player. When he was at Clemson early on in his career, then he had the injuries. Yep. Now he spent this last last season on injured reserve, rehabbing the foot, and he's in the mix. But I don't think he's anywhere near a lock. I think some of the hype is unwarranted. I think that fans are going to go to training camp and they're going to kind of see that. I think they haven't seen it so far because all we're getting is what the team and, some of these clips that are being fed to us and whatnot. I think they're going to understand that in terms of the hierarchy of Chiefs receivers right now, that he's going to be pretty low on the food chain early. And, that can always change. We've seen it happen before where, some guy, he catches steam and during training camp has a really good preseason. And all of a sudden he's making the team and making an outsized impact. But I just wouldn't bank on it right now. I think that there are other guys who are probably, more capable of making the team right now based on their skill sets, what they can offer. And there's just a point of it where you have to consider roster construction. If Justin Ross is making the team and one of these final roster spots, is he playing special teams? That's a big thing in Kansas City. Dave Toub has a ton of control over this roster, and guys who are maybe not the number 1, number 2, number 3 wideout, like they have to be playing special teams to be on that roster. So and we know that Ross can do it. He played punt returner in high school. I've been one of the main people to point this out, but he doesn't seem to really be much on the radar for that type of role in Kansas City, as far as I'm aware right now. So we'll just kind of see how things progress through training camp. But I do think Ross is kind of Justin Ross, not John Ross. I think John Ross actually might have a better shot, former first-round pick from the Bengals than Justin.
Yeah, well, John Ross has the one thing you can't teach. Speed. He is fast.
Yep. And you know what? I just wrote it to somebody on Twitter a few hours ago, but Andy Reid is one of the best in the NFL at finding ways to utilize specifically that skill set, utilize speed. Yep. And not just, utilizing that player's speed and getting him the ball, but using that speed to create space for other players to get the ball. So there are elements of this here that come into play that people don't always consider.
Yeah, let's. You talked a little bit about the defensive tackle there, Chris Jones restructuring, or not really restructuring his contract, re-signing. I was listening to a podcast earlier, getting a little bit more background on the Chiefs because, like I said earlier, I can't follow all 32 teams in depth. Like it's just not enough time in the day. Somebody mentioned that they're waiting on the tackle for the Jets, Quentin Williams. Once he resigns, they believe then Chris Jones will resign. This way that he can set the second highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL. I think he wants to be the second paid. Is there any truth to that, or you think it doesn't matter what the Jets are doing with Quentin Williams, that Chris Jones will eventually get done regardless?
I think they're connected in some way or shape, but I do think there's a bit of like of agents playing chicken, like who's going to blink first and get the deal done first. Yep. Because obviously you always want the better deal for your guy. You want to get the higher percentage of whatever you're making off of the contract and what have you as an agent. But I do think that there will reach a time where the Chiefs are like, okay, here's what our best offer is. I don't think they're going to beat around the bush. I think they have an understanding of what they want to pay Chris Jones, and I think Chris Jones' camp has an understanding of what they want to make. And I think that the Chiefs have a little bit of leverage, being that Jones has said that he doesn't want to play for another team ever, right? So I think that's going to give them some leverage to get a deal done a little bit more quickly. Do I think it could bleed into training camp? Absolutely. I wouldn't be shocked if he misses, I don't know, first week and a half of training camp. I also wouldn't be surprised if he was like, okay, I'm ready to come back, and comes to the table and they get a deal done and he's out there, the first day. I think it really could go a couple different ways, but in the end, I do think that Jones signs a deal, ends up in Kansas City long term. Whether that's the next 4 years, next 3 years, what have you. I think that they'll get something done that will be really, it's going to be important for the Chiefs, but it's also going to be important for Jones's legacy too, right? Because we're talking about a guy who, when it's all said and done, can end up being like top 2 in sacks in franchise history. He could end up, if the team continues to, with their success, he goes and grabs himself another couple rings. All of a sudden you're talking about,
one of the greatest ever.
Yeah, one of the greatest ever, Hall of Famer. So it's something that I think, that I think that will weigh on both teams, both camps, really, to get something done.
Yeah, I agree. Kansas City, they had a kind of a big coaching change this offseason. It wasn't the head coach. Andy Reid's still in place. He's still calling the shots there. But longtime offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy is been replaced with Matt Nagy. What are your thoughts on the coaching change, and how much difference will the offensive scheme change under Nagy compared to what it was under Eric Bieniemy?
Yeah, I don't think it'll change all that much. I think you'll see a few different things, some different nuances and things that Nagy kind of liked and utilized back in 2017. Just out of the sake of familiarity and comfort. But, there's going to be some change in his style. I mean, Eric Bieniemy is a very outspoken, and he's a straight shooter, and he's someone who will get after you on the field if you're not doing your job. So I think that Nagy is a little bit more reserved in how he handles the coaching. I mean, I think he's stern when he needs to be, but I don't think he's going to cuss anybody out on the field the way that Eric Bieniemy did during his time in Kansas City, has done during his time out there in Washington. And as far as Bieniemy is concerned, I'm disappointed that he didn't get an opportunity to become a head coach. I think he's well deserved that opportunity, and whoever makes him a head coach, they're not going to regret it. But I'm excited for his opportunity in Washington and working with Ron Rivera. I think it'll help him grow in a positive direction as well.
Why do you think Bieniemy was getting passed over for all these head coaching positions?
You got me. I mean, probably a race. That's the only thing that I can really think of. The fact that it just was so prevalent. All these different interviews and whatnot, and his offense is consistently at the top, and people maybe they're adverse to the way that he does things. People know that he's not going to beat around the bush. He has all these different football platitudes that he kind of lives by, and people will kind of like gawk at them a little bit and say, well, that's just something that coaches say. That's coach speak. But is it really coach speak when the players buy in?
No.
Because you hear Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, oh, we got to find a way to drag our ass across the finish line. Oh, where did they get that from? They got it from Eric Bieniemy. These are two of the greatest of all time at their position. And the guy who's coaching them, is making an impact, and people didn't realize it. They wouldn't look beyond when they probably should have. So go ahead.
Something like that coming from Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce, it's acceptable. But if it comes from a coach, that's way too abrasive for me.
Right.
Like I played Pop Warner for years and years. I played in high school. Unfortunately, I decided to go to the military route versus going to college. But I grew up with coaches having that abrasive style, and it just, I don't know. It's football. It's not a girl sport. Like, you have to deal with with the abrasiveness. It is what it is. You're talking the elite athletes in one of the most violent sports in the world. They're not going to, pardon the language here, but they're not going to pussyfoot around. They
Right.
can't.
Right. And
So,
you're talking about millions of dollars on the line too here, right?
yep.
Like this is a business too. So I
Billion-dollar business.
right. So there's an element of that to it that I think, um, I think that he was overlooked for those types of reasons, and it's a shame because he's a hell of a coach, and
Yep.
wish him nothing but the best in Washington and whatnot. And I think that Nagy style, look, it's different. It's going to work too. I mean, we saw it. We saw it in action. In 2017, giving Alex Smith the best year of his career.
Yep.
Before he went off to coach in Chicago, and things didn't go his way in Chicago, but I also think people look at that and they judge him based on what he couldn't do and don't really look at what he did do, which was take Mitch Trubisky and a team that probably shouldn't have been having an opportunity to play in the playoffs, and they were. So I think that he's going to bring some different elements to this team that maybe they didn't have when Bieniemy was running the show there. But at the end of the day, we know it's Andy Reid's ship, and it's just about having someone in that role who can work alongside Andy Reid successfully and can communicate their ideas together to really take the offense to new heights and innovate the way that Andy Reid likes. And I think they have a pretty good group to do that right now.
So, speaking of Andy Reid, I wrote up an article last year for Toilets of Titles, and it was top 5 coaches currently in the NFL.
Right.
I had Bill Belichick actually at number 2, and I had Andy Reid at number 1. Just looking at the totality of what Andy Reid has been able to do, not with just one franchise, but with 2 franchises, it just is super, super impressive. I thought he was just the absolute best coach in the NFL. Belichick was fortunate enough to have the greatest player. No disrespect, Patrick Mahomes. He's not there yet as Tom Brady. Definitely has the potential to replace Tom Brady as the greatest quarterback in NFL history, but currently he's just not there. And Bill Belichick had the advantage of having, one of the greatest tight ends in NFL history, the greatest quarterback in NFL history, just winning 6, 7 Super Bowl championships. I great career. A lot of that I attributed to Tom Brady, so I put Andy Reid ahead of him. My question for you: where would you rank Andy Reid in both the NFL as a coach, and is he a top 5 coach all time for you?
Oh yeah, definitely top 5 all time for me, without a doubt. I think just public opinion of him. I mean, you ask any of his players that have played for him. I mean, heck, I was just listening to Tyreek Hill on his podcast, the one he had with Michael Vick. Just listening to the way that Michael Vick talked about him, listening to the way that Tyreek Hill talked about him, and the type of respect that they have for him, not just as a coach in the game of football, but as a mentor, as a friend, as almost family. I mean, Tyreek Hill was talking about how when I think it was his grandfather had, I think he had cancer or some sort of bad illness, some sort of ailment. And Andy Reid called to check on his grandfather, would call and check on him. It wasn't prompted, nothing like that. He was just told about it, and he had connected with Tyreek Hill's grandfather in the past, and he would call and he would check on him during the season. Like when things were going on, like this is something that he would do. Like he genuinely cares about everyone that he comes in contact with in this sport. And I think that's amazing for someone who's having the type of success that he has, who's doing what he's doing at such a high level. I mean, I think that's probably an element of it. And reason why is because he connects with his players, with his coaching staff, with everyone around him on that level, and that he's so human about it. I think that they really appreciate that, and that allows them to really focus on things that matter. So that's my take on Reid. And yeah, I would absolutely rank him number one among NFL coaches right now. I mean, specifically active coaches, and I think he's definitely up there among them all time as well. I think there's nuance to the discussion, right? The fact that he's now the only coach in NFL history to win over 100 games with two different teams,
two different organizations. Yep.
Yeah, so I think that is a huge mark and milestone, and I think that obviously there's people who are going to be like, well, the rings are the only thing that matter, or this, that, and the other thing. But I just don't think that you can really take away anything from his legacy, given what he's put out there. And I think that after he retires, Lord knows when that happens. I think he's gonna be like Travis Kelce. He's gonna keep going until the wheels fall off. I think he loves this game and what he does too much. But if it starts to pass him by or something like that, he'll have a change of heart. But I think he's gonna keep going. But when he's not going, I think we're gonna look back extremely fondly, and the league's gonna miss him.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the whole rings argument. Like, and I'm gonna throw an NBA reference here. Like, if your argument is, well, Bill Belichick has more rings, I'm gonna be like, okay, well, then that just means Robert Horry is better than Michael Jordan and LeBron James and Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal because he's got more rings. So it's definitely a team sport. And just because you have more rings doesn't necessarily mean you're the better player or the better coach or whatnot at that given time. They say any given Sunday for a reason, and that is 100% the case. I've got a couple more questions on here that I want to get your opinion on, and then I'll go ahead and get you out of here. And I'm surprised we've gone the whole podcast so far without talking about Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce. But what is there really to talk about, right? Like the best quarterback in the NFL and the best tight end in the NFL. There's no discussion there. So we don't really need to deep dive into them.
Best golfers in the NFL, apparently, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, so I have a Travis Kelce question for you. He said he was going to say my fellow Americans. What was he going to say at the podium at the White House? Was he really going to say in your opinion, was he really going to say my fellow Americans?
I think he was going to shout out. I think he was going to shout out the podcast, man. I think he was going to shout out New Heights. He was going to give us one of his famous lines from the Beastie Boys or something. No, I think my fellow Americans feels accurate. The my fellow Americans, and then he could flip up some peace signs, do some Nixon, I don't know. But he that was a pretty fun moment.
That was a classic. That was a great moment.
Yeah.
Real quick, let's talk about the running backs, and then I've got one more question, and then we'll get you out of here.
Absolutely.
Kansas City pretty much brought back all the running backs that they had last year. They added Ronald Jones, who I'm not even personally, I don't think he's going to make the roster, but we'll see.
Jones was last year. Jones is gone now.
That's right. He was last year, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay. What about the running backs there?
So
talk about those, please.
Right now, everyone's looking at Isaiah Pacheco to have this big year 2, right? But we learned this offseason. One of my colleagues, actually at Rutgers Wire, was the one to break the news that Isaiah Pacheco had offseason surgery. Not one, but two. He had 2 offseason surgeries. He had surgery on his thumb, hand area. He had something going on there. And then he had shoulder surgery. And right now, he still hasn't participated in the offseason program. And from what I'm hearing, the Chiefs are going to kind of ease him back in. I don't think that he will be ready to go at the start of training camp. I honestly wouldn't be shocked. And I'll have an article coming out on this actually tomorrow. I wouldn't be shocked if he started on the PUP list. If he started camp on the PUP list. So I think that, obviously it's the active PUP list. They can activate him at any time before, the start of the season, before roster cuts. If he's not activated, then they would put him on the reserve PUP list at the start of the season and whatnot. I don't think it's that serious. I think he'll probably come back at some point during training camp. I don't think he'll play much during the preseason. And, the Chiefs are also being very cautious with Jerick McKinnon too, right? He's one of the older running backs in the room. I think he's 30, 31. Yep. And, he's had the injuries in the past, and this was a really long extended season for him, playing 20 games. So they had kind of been holding him back from working during the offseason program, during the offseason workout program. No OTAs, no mini camp for Jerick McKinnon. So those are your top 2 running backs, right? That aren't right now. They're not getting any action. And, I think they'll have a plan in place for McKinnon too during training camp. I think he'll work, but I think maybe it'll be maybe he gets a day off here and there. I think they'll really be cautious with him because I think they want to ensure that he's not only ready for the season, but able to keep things going for the long haul during the season. Because really, he made an outsized impact last season as a receiver and as a pass protector. And really, the Chiefs don't have anyone with that type of skill set besides McKinnon right now. I mean, Pacheco, they're hoping that pass protection improves there. That his receiving ability continues to grow. But, obviously I think McKinnon's the guy that they like there and that they want in that role for the majority of the season if they can keep him healthy. Then, obviously, we've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, former first-round pick. He's kind of been actually taking a back seat to undrafted free agent rookie out of Tulsa, Deneric Prince, who has been getting a lot of the first-team reps during OTAs, mandatory minicamp. They've kind of been rotating those 2 guys. And Prince has really shined as a receiver. And I think that's going to get him on the field early in Kansas City. I think, it's less about now, is he making the team? I think he's making the team. I think you could probably already write him in pen on the roster. He's considered their top kick returner right now. Dave Tobe loves the guy, likened him to Niall Davis, who was a kick returner at the running back position in Kansas City for several years. And I think that the fact that he's got that kick returner role on lock, the fact that he's really shined as a receiver during camp, and if he can just show once the pads come on that he can get the job done as a running back, I think just lock him in. I think he could be, honestly, if Pacheco's still being brought on, he could probably play that kind of similar role as Pacheco. They're both bigger guys, have kind of a tougher running style than some of the other guys on their roster. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs carried 4 running backs, and that if Edwards-Helaire was kind of taking the back seat to Prince, and that kind of those top 3 guys ended up being, Prince, McKinnon, and Pacheco throughout the season.
That's a name I'm gonna have to keep an eye on. I had never heard of that before. I actually checked one of my fantasy leagues to see if Prince was available, and unfortunately he wasn't. Somebody else already had him, but that's definitely a name I'm going to keep an eye on for some other fantasy leagues. Let's go ahead, and it's the last question I ask every guest that comes on. According to Sharp Football Analysis, the Kansas City Chiefs have the 28th most difficult schedule. Can you go ahead and give me a record at the end of the season for the Kansas City Chiefs? And how far – I'm going to assume they're going to make the playoffs. Yeah. How far do they actually get in the playoffs in 2023?
Yeah, so my prediction – I always release a prediction right after the schedule release every year. And I got them at 14-3 this year. I think I had losses to I want to say the I had lost to the Bengals, the Raiders, and the Vikings. So I had the Vikings is that one. There's always one peculiar upset that happens during the year in Kansas City, and I think a team like the Vikings could just catch them by surprise. I mean, they have that dominant wideout in Justin Jefferson, and Kirk Cousins doesn't really scare anybody, but he can get the job done, and it just comes at an interesting time of the schedule. I think that maybe after that, those couple games that that they'll be due for one of those peculiar losses. I mean, last year it was the Colts, right? The Chiefs had that, went into Indy, and they met a team that really wanted that win, and the Chiefs, they fought, but they couldn't get it done in the end. So I think 14-3. I think AFC West. I think that they can wrap that division up again this year. I really do think that this team on paper looks better than last year's team on paper, and you've got a lot of guys who are going to be going into their second year in that secondary. You've got some new pieces on the defense that I think are going to kind of help out, and getting younger there. I think that it's possible that this defense, which kind of ended the season on a positive note, could pick up right where they left off and really start strong and maybe make a push towards the top 10 this season, which could be huge because Patrick Mahomes has never had that during his career.
So who would you say in the AFC is the biggest roadblock for the Chiefs to repeat?
I think it'd have to be the Bengals. You see that rivalry kind of taking shape, and Joe Burrow, fantastic quarterback. They continue to add some pieces, and they're still in that period, that window where they have the flexibility because Burrow's not on that big contract yet. They don't have to pay Jamar Chase and T. Higgins yet, but they will. So time is running out for them to kind of go out there and beat the Chiefs. And I think if they're going to do it, I think they have to do it this year.
Yeah, I agree. So, Charles, again, I want to thank you for coming on, talking everything about the Chiefs.
Absolutely.
Your depth of knowledge on them is second to absolutely none. Why don't you take a moment, go ahead and tell everybody again where they can follow you, where they can get your content and support you, and then we'll get out of here.
Absolutely. So you can read all my daily stuff over at chiefswire.com. It'll redirect you to chiefswire.usatoday.com. You can also find daily newsletters from me during the offseason, not so daily, but during the season, they will be daily over at KC Sports Network. Those are all free. You can sign up for free, but they also do have a subscription-based coverage where you can get some more in-depth analysis from our talented team of writers and analysts. You can also find me on Twitter at GoldMCTNFL. You can find me over on the new Threads app at GoldMCT. You see over here, you got at the Chiefs Wire and at KC Sports Network, where you can also follow our work. Facebook.com/ I believe it's Chiefs Wire. Yeah. Is where you can find Chiefs Wire's content on Facebook if you're looking for that. KC Sports Network, all their socials are similarly available. I think Instagram, Facebook, what have you. But yeah, I appreciate you guys so much for bringing me on here, and I hope that I provided all the great Chiefs analysis that you need to help you win some fantasy football games next season.
Awesome. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. And everybody, have a great evening.